Hi everybody, welcome back to Tuesday Tips for Leaders of Volunteers. I am your host, Dana Litwin, and today, again, another week of tips inspired by recent social media forum conversations, and this really got a lot of traction where I posted that I very often talk about or post about, especially on social media, kind of deeper research and national or global strategies and volunteer engagement and things like that and innovative new things. But day to day, the most common conversation I have with potential clients, leaders of volunteers, is that they are trying to get something accomplished or convince their bosses or the board that their volunteer program has value, that their position has value, but they're not being respected and they're not being heard. And kind of, a very common thing that I hear a lot is maybe they'll listen to you. So sometimes when an outside consultant is brought in, then the bosses listen to what they have to say. And I'll tell you right now, for any current, past, or future clients, that if you hire me, I will do everything I can to advocate for the good ideas that you have. And today, I really want to cover, since consultants can't be everywhere all at once, especially me, then how to advocate for yourself and your position and the value of the volunteer program. And this is kind of a mix of a number of other points that exist in other Tuesday Tips videos, and I'll link to some of those that I talk about in cards above, and at the end of this video you'll see those links. But really, to kind of sum it up, when you're advocating for your own position, a raise for yourself, needing to add other paid staff onto your team or any other resources, it's a matter of knowing who your audience is and what kind of information or what style of communication convinces them. What do they listen to? What do they respect? And if you don't have the luxury of having me come in and speak on behalf of your program, then the best thing to do is you really want to tailor the show to the audience. So depending on who you're persuading and talking to, your individual supervisor or boss or executive leadership of the whole organization or board members, things like that, understand if that person communicates and kind of learns in a very data-centric analytical way, where they just want like a one-page sheet of show me your numbers, crunch your numbers and show that to me. Or are they the kind of person that wants an emotional, personal narrative story example from the program of a client or someone in the community's life being changed forever because these volunteers did this thing? Those are equally valid ways to communicate it, and sometimes people do a mix of both. I actually find that pretty effective as well. But if you don't understand how the person that you're talking to listens and wants their information, then you might waste a lot of time creating a really complicated, data-heavy, full of graphs and data visualization report for someone who just wants to hear a heartwarming story. Or the other way, you may come in with not prepared for a conversation to advocate for yourself, for your position, for your programs, without the proper data to back it up on volunteers attached to mission impact. And that should be data that you're collecting in your VMS or whatever other records management, data management systems that you have. So some of the ways that you can make the case include, and I'll link to this in this card, is the return on investment of volunteer engagement. And there's a lot of easy online calculators where you can plug in numbers for your programs and get the dollar amount of value for every volunteer for every dollar spent on the program. So again, I'm just going to link to a really easy calculator to do that for your program. So that's for the heavy data-driven people. And going beyond the mission impact of how many people and how many hours, how are volunteers moving the needle? How are they having a direct mission impact that can be measured by data? Is any of that data measurable or has been measured before? And if not, you can advocate for, or start doing it yourself, getting that kind of data and regularly presenting it to educate leadership on the value. As far as your personal value, If you have a chance for any professional development, if you have your CVA credential or CAVs, or you need to make the case to go to a particular conference, then professional development is something that you can also prove that you've done or advocate to get more funding for. And you can also do an analysis if you want to hire more positions, or you want to go, if you've been paid to be part-time and you want to go to full-time. But if you're expanding kind of working person hours in your department, then record how much of your time is being spent on different kinds of tasks typically in the week, and then use that to calculate out, well, if we had someone at twice this number of hours, we could get twice as much done. And one way that I've done it with past clients is I've actually written recommendations that say, if we add another volunteer coordinator positions, then we can host large corporate groups, but we just don't have the people power and the bandwidth to do that. So you can think of the metaphor of, your time cup is full and something's got to go. Something has to be taken out before you can add a new project in. And so very often these days, especially with shortages of volunteers and even, shortages of paid staff, that it's worth the investment in people and resources for volunteer services to get a very real impact and result. If it's hard for you to have these kinds of conversations, if you're not the kind of personality that's used to speaking up for yourself and making the case, or it's hard to brag about what you're doing, there's ways to get over that kind of nervousness or stage fright, and I'll link to that video as well of how to have a tough talk. So this doesn't necessarily have to be a stressful or tough talk, but I'm just recognizing that a lot of you out there, a lot of my colleagues, just aren't comfortable having that kind of conversation where they advocate for themselves and they don't know where to start. So hopefully this video helps you know where to start, what kind of information to gather up, what kind of personality, more analytical or data-driven or more emotive and kind of personal narrative, personal emotional connection, motivated type person, then you can hopefully advocate successfully for your job, for expanding your resources, for getting a raise, for getting more people on your team, or buying a van, whatever you need to do to keep your volunteer engagement going really successfully. So I hope this is helpful for Tuesday tips, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and please share far and wide, like, subscribe, hit the little bell to learn when I have my newest videos uploaded just about every week, and we'll see you next time.